Welcome to Betrayal Recovery Radio, the official podcast of APSATS, the Association of Partners of Sex Addict Trauma Specialists, hosted by Dr. Jake Porter. APSATS is a nonprofit organization providing professional training and compassionate support to partners affected by problematic sexual behavior and betrayal trauma. In each episode, Dr. Jake guides a conversation of enlightening insights and practical tools to empower those affected by sex addiction and betrayal trauma to use their voices and live their values. The mission of Betrayal Recovery Radio is to offer hope to those in need of healing and growth to those moving through grief. And now, here's your host, Dr. Jake Porter.
Welcome to Betrayal Recovery Radio. I am Dr. Jake Porter, and on today's podcast, I'm honored to welcome actress and writer Maddie Corman. You probably recognize Maddie from her decades-long career in film, television, and theater, with credits spanning everything from Some Kind of Wonderful and Made in Manhattan to recurring roles on Madam Secretary, Divorce, Younger, many other shows. She's graced both off-Broadway and Broadway stages, including acclaimed productions like Next Fall and Appropriate. But today, we're talking about one of her most personal and powerful works, Accidentally Brave. Accidentally Brave began as a one-woman stage play and has since been adapted into a film that is streaming on HBO Max. It tells the raw, courageous story of Maddie's life turned upside down by the shocking and very public betrayal of her husband. Through humor, heartbreak, and radical honesty, Maddie invites audiences into her journey of surviving the unimaginable and choosing to move forward anyway. This isn't just a conversation about grief and betrayal. It's about resilience, love, and what it means to write your story when life doesn't follow the script. And I'll just say that I've, read a lot about betrayal trauma. I talk a lot about betrayal trauma. Maddie's depiction of the experience of a betrayed partner is probably the most powerful and visceral I've ever experienced. It is extremely true to the stories that I've heard from many betrayed partners, even where the particulars are different. And so for that reason, I would just want to say, before you jump out there and you watch the film, which I do encourage you to do, check in with yourself. If it's very early in this process for you, you may not quite be ready for something so raw. But if you are a little further along, if you're in phase 2 of the multidimensional partner trauma model, if you're past this place of needing safety and stability, and you're in that mourning and remembering place, doing the grief work, or beyond that in post-traumatic growth, it might be a really wonderful, powerful thing to do, and perhaps even with your partner. And I say this to any betraying partners out there who are listening. I strongly encourage you to watch this show. I believe it could be a source of incredible empathy and understanding and compassion, as it helps you understand what you may have put your betrayed partner through. Now, joining me in this conversation with Maddie is APSATS President Jeanne Vattuone, and Jeanne is a wonderful practitioner out in California. She's been serving APSATS faithfully for several years now as president, and she's well known to listeners of this podcast. Now, speaking of APSATS and Jeanne, I do want to let you know about a few exciting things that APSATS has coming up. On July 2nd, starting at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, Jeanne will be hosting an APSATS certification Q&A. So if you're interested in understanding just what it means to be certified by APSATS, the Association of Partners of Sex Addict Trauma Specialists, and all that process entails, you can join Jeanne for that live Q&A session via Zoom on July 2nd. Learn more at apsats.org. And then September 11th, live via Zoom, Jessica Edens, APSATS Vice President, will be teaching her Betrayed Families Support for Children and Families training. That will take place over the course of a few weeks, starting on September 11th. Now, if you do work with betrayed partners or want to work with betrayed partners, I cannot emphasize enough how important I think it is that you take APSATS really foundational cornerstone training, which is the multidimensional partner trauma model training. There are 2 offerings that are on the schedule right now. September 22nd through 25th, there will be one held live online, but here's the kicker. This one will be timed for people on the other side of the world, Australia, New Zealand, Singapore. It will be daytime for you folks, much later in the day for folks here in the States. But there's been huge demand, and APSATS wants to continue its mission of helping partners around the world. So if you are around in that area of the world, or you know someone who is and who would benefit from the multidimensional partner trauma model training, check that out at apsats.org. And another very exciting offering of the MPTM training, the very first in many years in-person training will be offered in Seattle, Washington, October 22nd through 25th. So if you've been holding out, waiting for an in-person training, it's coming. And you can go ahead and sign up and register, secure your spot for that now at apsats.org. Just a couple of other things I want to mention to you. One, in case you haven't grabbed my book yet, I do give it away for free. This is really for couples, but a lot of individuals have read it and gotten a lot from it as well. Breaking Barriers, Building Bridges, the couple-centered recovery model for lasting connection after betrayal. If you want a digital copy, just go to drjakeporter.com. You can find that digital copy for free. I just give it away there. If you do want an actual physical copy, you can get it way cheaper than Amazon if you go to helpafterbetrayal.com, and I'll give it to you for free. Just cover the shipping and handling cost on your part. It comes out to $8. So grab my book if you haven't gotten it yet. And the last thing I just want to say before we dive into this conversation with Maddie, which you will find, I think, to be really moving and compelling, is it was a long conversation. So we're going to break this into 2 different episodes. So without further ado, listen in on the first half of our conversation with Maddie Corman on her work, Accidentally Brave. Well, hello, Maddie. Hello, Jeannie. Welcome to Betrayal Recovery Radio, both of you.
Hi.
Hi. It is
Happy to be
really,
here.
yeah, it's really great to have you, Maddie, have you, Jeannie. And Maddie, we were starting to visit about this before I hit record. So I'll go back and pick up where I left off. I've watched Accidentally Brave twice now. Last night I watched it with my wife. That
Wow.
was an incredibly meaningful time. I mean, we were in bed watching it, and my daughter only walked in one time, so I only had to hit pause once. But just the moments of reaching for her and thinking about our own story, which is very different in some ways, but then also brought up for me just the universality
Yeah.
of some aspects of this experience. And that's kind of where I wanted to start with you, because you somehow were able to share your story, but in a way that I just know it is going to resonate with betrayed partners and recovering addicts
Mhm.
who view it. So here's my first great question. How did you do that?
Yeah. Thank you for watching it twice, and thank you for the compliment. I think I just told the truth. And I think when we get granular and share the messy details, even if they're not exactly the same, there's something, like you said, universal about pain and about grief. And
Mm-hmm.
I was so lonely during that time, and I was in search of other people or even other stories that I could listen to or watch, and I couldn't find them. So I think there was just a part of me as a longtime actress, not a writer, but I became a writer because nobody had written this story, and I didn't know how to
Wow.
tell it any other way than to just tell my story. And I really did have a lot of woo woo moments of just having the pen move or the cursor move in a way that just felt like it wasn't fully me. But I did tell the truth in a way that I tried to also have integrity by not oversharing my husband's story or my kids' story. I don't know how to tell this part of my life without including them somewhat. Um, But since I did it as a play first, and I couldn't really see the audience, but my wonderful director was there when we did a very early read through, and she said she watched couples may or may not have been through anything like this, just kind of almost unconsciously lean against each other. Some of them lean in, some of them take each other's hand. And we said, oh, I guess it's not that crazy a story, because the details of my particular story are extreme. But I think anyone who's been through betrayal, or maybe even anyone who's been through addiction or shock, hopefully can find something comforting in hearing that the feelings are similar. So I don't know, but I do love when I hear from couples. And now that the movie's on HBO, it's reaching a lot more people. And I love, not in an inappropriate way, but I love the image that you and your wife were watching it in bed, because it is hard to go to a theater and experience this. I've had that experience of watching it with a group of people, and it is kind of community building, if you will, but it also takes something to let your guard down and watch something like this. So I like that people can access it in their living rooms. And the couples that have reached out to me have shared some really rewarding feedback, including that the addict, the betrayer, in my case, the guy, usually, not always, that there's some deep understanding of pain when it's not your own partner's pain. And being able to look over and go, oh, wow, you felt like that, you feel like that. And I get that, because I would make up that my husband, my pain was too much for him. And his pain was too much for me, to be honest. I didn't realize I was lucky at the time, but there aren't a ton of in-person family weeks anymore. But my husband went pretty quickly after our D-Day to rehab, to inpatient rehab. And this is before COVID. And I went very grudgingly to Family Week. But one of the many great things about Family Week for me was getting to meet other men and addicts who I had immediate compassion for them. I could see that these were not only good people, beautiful people. I totally believed that these guys were in love with their wives, who were sitting beside me as broken as I was. And I couldn't see that about my own partner. I couldn't understand that he could do what he did, watch what he watched, and still be a person who was good, a person who loved me.
Right.
But I could see it in other people. So
I think that's one of the reasons this film is so important. And I know it started as the play, but the more resources we have where folks can feel validated by you sharing your experience, and then their partner, their relationship partner, being able to connect with the pain helps them have empathy and maybe a touch more understanding, compassion for their loved one.
I hope so. I also think, the other thing I want to share for people who are watching it, who don't get to hang out with me after, is that, and this isn't everybody's story, but my story is I'm now 10 years out and I'm happily married. And I have been shamed for sharing that, but that's the truth. And I think it's an important thing to share. I hadn't seen examples of couples who'd gone through this and stayed married. And just having that, I hope, gives some people some hope. Yeah. I'm not the patron saint of marriage. I'm not a martyr. I don't believe that everybody should stay together, but just the fact that it can happen. I believe that my partner's had clean sobriety for 10 years. That's also something that we don't hear about a lot.
Right.
And certainly on TV and film and theater, it feels to me from the women, especially who've reached out to me, that there's not a lot of stories of forgiveness and healing. There's a lot of stories of throw the bastard out and we'll give you a parade.
Yeah.
So and a lot of people don't get to share those stories. They're not, and it's not easy. So that was the other reason I wanted to tell the story, was to say, it's not like, and then I said, it's okay, and we lived happily ever after. No, it's not a straight line. No,
Right.
definitely not.
Right.
Well, I love even what you just kind of put out there, and thank you for sharing that, 10 years later, you're still married and happily married, because, and Jeannie used the word validating. That's what I was thinking as well, talking about having empathy and compassion for the other people, but not your own partner, right? I think just that alone is going to be so validating for so many listeners, so many people who watch the film. I know that's the experience of so many of the women and men that I work with who've been betrayed, where there's something about bringing it home. It's threatening, right? There's a level of threat and impact there that causes this sort of disconnect between the natural empathy and compassion I have as a person generally, and toward even people who did very similar things. And then I can't find that in my own relationship. Such a common symptom of betrayal trauma.
Oh,
And
absolutely. I mean, the shame, I think a lot of people in my recovery experience like to compare sex addiction, sexual compulsion, acting out with other things to kind of make it less terrible. Like, oh, it's like cancer. Oh, it's like alcoholism. And all of that may be true, but there is something extra challenging, to use a nice word, when it's sex. It just so personal. And our society has so many feelings about it that I carry that I didn't even know I carried. And the shame of the addict and the shame of the partner is a really murky stew to navigate. And so I also think hearing that other people, it feels so lonely because nobody's talking about it. And I don't wish, part of my story, for those of you who haven't seen the film or know about it, is public shame. And I don't wish that on anybody. It's really not fun. And I was and continue to receive grace that other people don't get to receive because people don't know they're in any pain. So many couples, if they can keep this a secret, do. And it's not just the addict saying, I want to keep it a secret. Many partners don't want to share this with their closest family because they don't want their family to be angry. They don't want the judgment. They don't want to scare anybody, whatever the case may be. But then it's this lonely duet of you and the person who broke your heart only being the only two people that know what's going on.
Yeah.
And so, although I don't enjoy that my story was made so public, there was someone who said to me, my angel actually, who said early on, oh, it's so great that your story was in the Post. The New York Post, for those of you outside of New York, is not where you want your story. And I said, I don't understand. She is this amazing woman who reached out to me, who I did not know, who just took the time and the effort to find me. Partly because she saw the story in the Horrible Post and other places. But anyway, she said, it's so great that it's so public. And I said, I don't understand.
Not what you thought you were going to hear.
No, I said, I don't get it. And she said, it's not for you or the kids to do the dance of keeping this secret. You don't have to decide who to tell. You don't have to figure out when to tell. It's done. And I said, oh, well, I'm not there yet. I'm still not fully there.
Yeah, file that one away.
Yeah. But, I spoke to a betrayed partner today who said, I'm not in any way trying to minimize your story, Maddie, but the fact that it involved arrest, I feel like your husband got such strong consequences, and he has really beautiful recovery. And in her case, nobody held her partner to any consequences except for her. So again, I don't recommend getting arrested nor public shame, but there is some accountability, and there is something of going, okay, we are down, we are humbled, and now let's see what we got.
Wow. Go ahead, Jeannie.
I was thinking about shame and that being such a powerful emotion. And in this experience, the carried shame,
Right.
you know, by you being betrayed partner of, I've got my own worries, fears, concerns, pain, but then I'm also carrying the shame.
Yes.
And how do I not carry the shame of my loved one's behaviors and actions? And then public shame. I'm like, oh my goodness, Maddie, that was so much. How did you cope?
And I want to add to that question before you answer it, because it's similar to one that I had down. I wrote down that you had so captured the shame of partners, the carried shame of partners, and the way you talk about what was really impactful to me was the examples of where people put on you expected you to do the heavy lifting around, you know, your husband's acting out in consequences. For example, like, oh, he's not going to coach the soccer team this year, and I guess I'll try to find the equipment to get it to the new coach. Like when there was a sequence of those sorts of things, I was breathless watching like the experience of that carried shame that you depicted in that. So yes, Jeannie's question.
Well, I also just want to say I'm 10 years into this, a few years past doing it on stage and filming, but 10 years past the actual event. And even just hearing you say that example, it's still, my whole body got tense. I have tears in my eyes, and I'm owning that because there's a part of me that wants everybody listening to know it takes so much time. And so when you say, how did you handle it? Sometimes not very well. Sometimes by just saying, yes, sure, I can explain sex addiction and porn addiction, and I can completely understand why you're saying you would never stay, but here's why I did. And I wasn't equipped to do that. I didn't even understand what was happening. So sometimes I would smile and then go lie down. Sometimes I would berate my partner. Sometimes I would just lie down on the bathroom floor and moan. What helped me get through the shame was learning. I had a real desire for a psychoeducational component of my betrayal trauma that I didn't even know I wanted, but I wanted to read. I didn't want my husband to tell me I should read about sex addiction. I did not want to have him encourage me to pray. I didn't want him to encourage me to read. I was like, you get over in your lane. But learning about that this is truly an addiction, that the brain does get hijacked, and having doctors and experts like you two say to me, you are not crazy for even thinking about loving this person or staying married to this person. At least there's something real about this. Because again, I'd been alive for 40 something years when this happened and gone to many different schools, worked with many people, lived many different places, and I didn't know anybody. And I had never read anything except, oh, sex addiction, that's a joke. That's something we laugh about. Pornography is a joke until it's not. And by the way, just to be really clear, my husband watched illegal pornography, and that's not okay. I don't think it's okay. He doesn't think it's okay. You two don't think it's okay. But it is, I did learn that it is one of the things that happens when you start with one kind of porn. And I needed to learn about it, and I didn't just suddenly forgive my partner because, I don't know, Oprah told me to, or the Bible told me to, or a rabbi told me to. You know, I didn't. I needed both. I did need to fall on my knees, by the way. That is a big component, because the shame was too much. That was really hard. And also my children had shame, and that just broke my heart, because they also looked up to their dad. And it's one thing to see your dad fall from grace, but also to witness the world saying he's not worth being around anymore. I think that's been really, really painful and hard. And I think that for me personally, it forced me into doing some work that I didn't want to do. I really care about what other people think about me. And that's been something I really like people. Oh, sorry. My dog.
That's okay.
No, you don't.
I did not expect him to bark like that right there.
I like you. I'll start that again just in case. I really am a person. This sounds silly to say. I suppose everybody cares about what people think, but I don't know if it comes from which came first, being an actress or having this personality, but I want you to like me, and I can bend myself into a particular position that makes you like me. I take your temperature to see how I'm feeling. And that's something that's part of my personality. And believe me, that I don't in any way take responsibility for my husband's behavior or addiction, but I was very much about, let me help you feel better. I didn't know what was going on, but something was going on. But anyway, losing his public standing and then having it affect my public standing really made me get really quiet and go, I cannot make everybody like me. And going more public, which I did, made more people not like me and more people judge me. But I think there was some work in that I needed to do. I needed to like me, and I needed to go, okay, I feel all right about this choice. But when it's that public and it's happening that quickly, I was standing by someone who I didn't know if I trusted, if I didn't know if it was okay. And the shame was excruciating. That's all I can say. And then knowing what I know about addiction and learning pretty quickly from wonderful teachers and also wonderful addicts who reached out to us, including drug, alcohol, gambling addicts who just recognized and said, I'm not the worst thing I've ever done. I know that your husband is not either. And that was so helpful to hear other people say that. But I think it was and continues to be really hard to recover with all that shame, because shame is part of why the addict acts out to begin with. So to have it just be there, but it's something that I have to continue to work on. It didn't just go away. I lived in a very small suburban town where at least it felt like everybody knew us. And so for the story to be so public, going places like to the market, just felt impossible, because the people who looked at me with these eyes, some of it I might have been imagining, but a lot of it I wasn't imagining. And a lot of people, it wasn't that they were looking at me with cruel eyes, they were looking at me with, I feel so sorry for you. And that's also almost unbearable for me.
Right.
So it took a while. COVID, in some ways, it wasn't a good thing for so many people, but I think for a lot of families dealing with addiction, it allowed a little bit of a pause where we just got to be with each other and nobody was looking. And I know a lot of partners that actually found it a relief to not have to go to the soccer game and act like everything was okay.
Sure. Yeah, that makes so much sense. And you know, in the film, there's there's all the voices and the looks from all of these folks, but there are the occasional messages from other people. But your angel, as you call her, the mysterious angel, there was one text that she sent you. I think if I'm remembering right, it was the first day when you started communicating with this woman. And for those who haven't seen the show yet, the angel is someone very well known. Maddie has great boundaries and isn't going to tell us, but who made contact with her when she recognized that there was something happening there and recognized it as sex addiction. And so there was this text that this was the first time I wept during it. Lots of love to you both. To you both.
Yeah.
Hit me in the gut. The importance of seeing, I mean, my little notes I wrote was like grace from this wise heart that, okay, maybe he's not the worst thing he's ever done. Maybe it's not black and white.
That really helped me. And I do coach women now, and I always try to say, I send you both love. I'm praying for both of you.
Yes.
And I had to borrow that grace from her because I didn't have it for my own partner.
Sure.
And just to see this awesome person, by the way, she's amazing, a badass in the best possible way. And that she was saying, I send love to you both. Not only did she say that, she said, this is going to be amazing for your family.
Yes.
And she was right. And I didn't believe her. But the lots of love to you both is something that really touched me. And I did hear, again, it was very public. I heard from hundreds of people because I was big on, Instagram and Facebook, and everybody reached out to me. And I can count on one hand the number of people who reached out to my husband. And people didn't know what to say. They don't know what to say. And even to me, they didn't know what to say, but they did reach out. But it was also overwhelming. But the way that certain people reached out, a lot of people said, and by the way, wonderful people. I have really wonderful, well-meaning people in my life. I also had people who just wanted to hear the story and the gossip and be able to disseminate the information to others. But you get pretty good at discerning. But even my really, really wonderful, well-meaning family and friends, many of them said, I can't even imagine. And I know that sounds like a really beautiful thing to say, but it was so lonely to be on the receiving end over and over again. That's why I call the film Accidentally Brave. You're so brave, I can't even imagine. You're so brave, I can't even imagine. And I was like, I don't want to be brave and strong. I want you to imagine. And, this angel said, love to you both. And I feel sorry with you. It's not that I feel sorry for you. I feel sorry with you. And I validate all of your pain and anger. And I know it's going to be okay because I've been there. And that I did go to amazing therapists. And
I just got chills here. I just got chills. I mean, the wisdom of those words.
Yeah.
And you're going to be okay.
And your kids are going to be okay.
And your kids are going to be okay. In the moment in time in which that's happening. I mean, I think you've aptly named this person. And when you call angel, I mean, just this person who comes in and just provides this hope and validation. And like you said, even though I didn't believe it at the time, wise person.
Generous and wise.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, that's something I often say to my clients I get to work with is, hey, I get it. You don't feel it right now, but I'll just hold on to this hope till you're ready for it. Because there is a lot of reason for hope. So much reason for hope. So that was sort of the first flame of light after the crisis, right? Eventually though, you do find your way into support groups of various sorts. I thought we could maybe talk a little bit about how important that was for you, because there are a lot of partners, and we all know this, but I want to say this for our listeners in case you're one of them. There are partners out there who really can be fearful, resistant, really unsure about going into any sort of meeting or support group. So, Maddie, could you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. And I'm not a group person. You know, I wasn't in a sorority. I have a lot of friends, but not big groups. But I truly think that groups saved me in many ways along these last couple of years of my life, because it just helped me relearn trust, first of all. And I'm in lots of groups. I will share, and I know that not everybody has had the same experience, so I'll just share my experience. Yeah. I go to S-Anon, which is a 12-step group for partners of or family members of people with sexual compulsion. I've also been a member of a group of partners of sex addicts run by a therapist. I did an intensive outpatient 5-day intensive for partners, and I had family week in person, and I met a couple of women there that were also wives of. And these are my people. This is my army that I had to rebuild a system that I could reach out to people. And I found my people in these groups, and my story's extreme. I heard the other day that someone with a similar story to mine went to a group and was told to leave. And that really breaks my heart. That is not my experience. If that becomes your experience, leave, but call me and I'll start a group for you.
There you go.
Because what I did experience there was shame reduction by sharing my story and having people have their reaction, but saying, come sit next to me. We all have different stories in these groups. Nobody's the winner of the shame Olympics or the betrayal Olympics, you know, and I really, really found my voice again. I do encourage people to go to a group run by a CSAT or an APSATS trained coach, or a coach who at least has some deep understanding of betrayal trauma, because it is complex trauma. And I am a member and a coach. Like, I know that it is not the same. But sitting in a group with other people sharing a story who grew up completely different from me, whose story is different, but whose feelings are echoing exactly mine, just gave me a lot of strength. And I did share. I certainly didn't wake up one day and go, I think I'm going to write about this and talk about it. But I shared and shared and shared with these small, safe groups. And it really helped me with my shame reduction. It also helped me. I was really destroyed by the fact that my husband wasn't telling me the truth. I really love my husband. I really loved my husband. And that just shook me to my core. And I think that being in the groups that I was in, more so than the one-on-one therapy I did, which was also helpful, but being in the groups kind of re-educated me about trust. I got so small. I wasn't sharing with my family and friends, but I was sharing with these strangers, men and women, some of whom I don't know their last name to this day, and they know parts of my story that nobody else knows. And we just held space for each other. And that sounds kind of trite, but it really meant everything.
Yeah.
And there are people who are in my group who my partner's group that I was a member of for many years, by the way, many years. This was not like a 6 months and done situation.
Right.
And there was a woman that when she arrived in the group had not told a single soul.
Yeah.
And I get that now when people reach out to me, that their kids don't know, their parents don't know. And so to have a group where where you can share anything. And if it's run right, where it's not, the feedback is not, you should leave, you should stay, you have to, he needs to, just really listening and reflecting back to each other what we're hearing is so valuable. I know you both know Marnie Breeker, and
Yeah.
Jeanne and I led a retreat in October for betrayed partners. And I would say, I would let them speak, but for me, just bearing witness to the women sharing their stories and the rest of us saying, I heard you say you were at a Mexican restaurant. I heard you say your two kids were in the car. Whatever it is, the details about our stories that nobody really knows, to be heard and seen feels really, really raw and really good. So I'm a huge fan of groups, and also just to have those people that you can reach out to in the night. You know, I have a partner who really embraced recovery. He did anything and everything that he was told. For the most part, he really wanted to fix my broken heart, and I wanted him to also. My deal was like, you broke me, you fix me. So we both wanted that, and it didn't work. You know, he couldn't. And in the middle of the night, believe you me, I didn't always pause and reach out to one of the many people who said, call me or text me anytime. I would just erupt on him. But to the times that I did pause, or even after I erupted, to have people to reach out who would say, oh gosh, I did that last night, or yes, of course you did, or yeah, that's okay. Or even saying, do you want to go make amends to him? And I was like, what? But yes, because I don't like when I speak like that. And so I have this amazing group. The other thing that I learned in groups is, I don't know why a particular population gets picked to have this happen, but there are such incredible people who are in this community. It's not like everyone loves to ask me, especially when I go on podcasts or interviews outside of the recovery world. Well, how many friends did you lose? Who did you lose? And I really have tried to turn that question around now, because I did lose some friends. But if anything, I have gained an incredible group of people, and not the dregs of society, not like, well, you get the booby prize, like really fascinating, spiritual, feminists, forward thinkers, deep thinkers, beautiful people who are trudging this path. So I don't, and the friendships that remained, I mean, most of us don't get to have a test of friendship like this. I mean, I say that to all the partners who give their betrayers the chance. And like I said, not everybody should stay or does stay, but to just be given that chance. That is the kind of grace that many people never get to experience. So we get to give that to somebody, and that is pretty remarkable. So most of the people, the partners who show up at a group, are trying at least and willing to look at ourselves. And like I said, I don't blame myself for my partner's addiction, but it affected me deeply. And I have to look at who the person was, namely me, who lived with someone for 20 years who had a secret porn habit and an intimacy disorder. And I was somehow okay with that. And believe me, when I say okay, I didn't know what was going on. And it's not that my husband was looking at illegal things for 20 years. That was progressive. But where was I? You know, who am I? What was going on? And it's a tricky thing to talk about. And I know you two especially understand this. I didn't know what was going on. And sometimes I still wake up 10 years later and go, how could I not have seen? How could I not have known? And I will still wake up my husband and say, what is wrong? What's wrong with me? I mean, I had all your passwords. Like, we don't have a big house. Like, we were in each, and he would just, when he's in a good space and gentle and kind, he'll say, addicts are really good at hiding things, and I didn't want you to know. So there's both, and I'm trying to let go of blaming myself, and I find in partners groups we share that as well. But also looking at the woman that put up with some, even though I didn't know the sexual behavior was going on, there was other unacceptable behavior like rage and irritability and hypercritical that was going on that I did accept that I wouldn't now.
And that's right where you said that I wouldn't accept now, because I always want to be careful when I'm working with betrayed partners about using the information you know now and not judging the version of you that you were then.
Yeah.
We all learn as we continue to walk this life's path. We all grow. Hopefully we're learning from our mistakes and such, but being very careful that we're not judging ourselves with the new information we have of our experience or knowledge, all the books that you were saying you were reading, and putting that upon our past self.
Yeah.
And instead, hopefully looking, like you've done so beautifully, looking at compassionately and saying, okay, what do I want now for me?
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Betrayal Recovery Radio, hosted by Dr. Jake Porter. If you value the content we've shared today, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review. This helps others find the show, and we greatly appreciate it. For more resources, visit APSATS.org. That's APSATS.org.